Welcome to UC Summit with me, David Dungo. Today we're going to be talking about optimizing hybrid working. I have with me Steve from Starleaf and Kumar from Radisys. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Doing really well. Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's do a few introductions before we get into some questions. Steve, do you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Be my pleasure, David. My name's Steve Wraith. I'm CRO at Starleaf. We are the company that puts the human connection at work. We are a user-focused platform for messaging, meetings, and calling that is entirely trustworthy and is inclusive. And we believe, I'm slightly biased here, is the future way for hybrid working.
Excellent. You managed to crowbar the company line in there. I like that. Kumar, tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Kumar Priyarath. I am Director of Product Management, looking after the cloud solutions at Radisys. And at Radisys, what we are investing is the enablement of core technology that is required for communications and collaborations, and including some backend infrastructure such as 5G network. So we like to bring together the different aspects of technology together and enable basically the technology of today as well as future. So that is, and we have been in the business for a long time, and our most well-known product is MRF. The media server. So that is what we are known for.
Excellent. So today's session, optimizing hybrid working. We've all found ourselves, most of us have found ourselves in this very strange environment after 2020, which I'm sure is a year most people would like to forget at this point. But we saw early on in March 2020, the world pretty much went to remote working. Fast forward to today. There's a lot of businesses out there wondering how they really optimize that working. How do they? We're seeing hybrid workforces. We're seeing people at home in the office trying to collaborate with each other. So let's talk about some of those trends. So Steve, should we start with yourself? What kind of trends are you seeing with regards to that optimization piece at the moment?
Well, I mean, clearly some people have done a much better job with their natural video backgrounds than others. And, I think we have a fascinating window into each other's lives at the moment. Kumar, I love you brought your family with you. I'm afraid I've brought my obsession for Lego with me. I think it's a really, really interesting time, David. And I was at, for instance, a CIO event that was run in Germany last week. And the big topic there was exactly this, optimizing hybrid working. And the way the thing was introduced was, look, let's face it, we were all in panic mode to start off with. We all just did whatever was necessary in order to keep people connected. We've been through that now, and it now looks like hybrid working is here to stay in one form or another. And now there's a bit of breathing space. So there's a bit of time to reflect on what's happened and make some informed decisions moving forwards. One of the big topics at the CIO event was the way that, as a CIO, previously these roles were responsible for productivity and enabling that through technology. And they're still responsible for that, often with the same budgets, or in some cases lower budgets. But now suddenly they're responsible for employee wellness as well, because actually this is our window on our world that we previously used to have day to day with our employees. So suddenly the weight is on the shoulders of the CIOs out there to connect people. I think there's a whole raft of topics around that as to how to enable that. The technology has got to be inclusive. It's literally got to work for everyone. That's not only so that we can be productive, it's for our own mental health, so that we can stay connected with our colleagues. Ideally, we don't get video fatigue. I mean, I don't know about Kumar yourself, but I often spend 8-10 hours on video meetings every day, running out to get a bit of lunch every now and then. A lot of that human connection has been lost, and one way or the other, I think that is a big thing for companies to consider moving forwards. Is how do we make sure our employees stay well as well as productive.
Yeah, absolutely. Kumar,
absolutely. Yeah, so that's really the points that I mean. These are the challenges that we all are facing, right? And um, uh, different companies are trying to think about this problem, like how do we best make the situation as well as help going forward. So let me take this question and from a slightly kind of complementary angle to what Steve was saying, right? So Steve is from like, okay, what the workers are facing, how to maximize the participation and continues to remain productive. So from the complementary angle is like, okay, what is it that the companies needs to be doing or they're doing? So the three trends that I think I would like to talk about. One is around the, like Steve you said, about the acceleration of digital and remote everything, right? So every company had some sort of plans for that to do it over for a multiple number of years, and everything has been accelerated by, according to one research, like 6 years, if not faster, right? So it is a lot of things that needs to be done in a very, very short period of time. And this trend is expected to remain in effect even when we get out of this pandemic, right? So that's the one trend, which is the acceleration of digital and remote everything. The second aspect that I want to kind of bring in that is also very prominent these days is around the acceleration of what we call programmable and communications and collaborations. Now, in the UCAS space, right, where we have spent a lot of our time, we have been talking about this for quite some time. However, this is now seeping into another rest of the technology world as well, such as programmable communications, right, in the 5G space. And us being in the 5G space helps us to kind of enable some of the collaborations and communications technologies that we will talk about. And then finally, that is about the virtual assistant, right? So the deployment of virtual assistant in all sort of use cases that make our life easy, to go through the hours and hours of the video calls that we sit through, all the remote functionalities where taking notes sometimes it becomes seemingly a mundane task, becomes quite a bit of a strenuous task. And how do these virtual assistants can come in and play some role in there? So the interesting thing is that how this situation, this unexpected compression of the future, so to speak, has brought us into this situation. How do we solve this problem? But these are the trends that we notice.
Can I ask you, Mark? You mentioned virtual assistants there. That's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? About how I would use a virtual assistant to maybe reduce fatigue, to get more out of my day, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. So what has happened that again, the concept of virtual assistants has been there forever. However, with the development of AI and NLU and NLP, and in particular the voice enablement of virtual assistant that is happening, that is a relatively recent phenomena. That has enabled the accelerated the acceptance of such a bot in or such assistant in our day-to-day life, including professional life, a far more acceptable proposition, right? And they are becoming more prevalent. So one of the space, the use case that I mean, there are many ones, right? But one that perhaps will be very pertinent for a conversation like this is that maybe a virtual assistant, which like your really faithful real life assistant, kind of is right there all the time, but not intrusive, right? So say some assistant that can be activated using a wake word, and then it just pops in, it joins. Maybe it will have our own avatar. Just imagine the fourth person here joining, and then start taking notes. Or we can say, oh, can you go and call that person out and authenticate and make it join, right? And this virtual assistant goes out, calls, carries on the background of authentication, whatnot, and makes you join the call, right? Takes a simple task of maybe action items. I mean, those things are already, we are seeing that coming through in many of the applications now. But this is where we think that we are going to move towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, virtual assistants is it's a big one. You know, I've recently started working with one, but we're seeing them from transcription services. Zoom has got quite a close relationship with a company called Otter for transcription. Cortana of Microsoft as well. If you're in the Microsoft suite, which many of us are, there's some really handy tools out there for sure. Okay, well, let's talk about those customers who might be watching now, who might be sitting there thinking, how do I make my work environment better? What questions do I need to ask of myself and of my teams to really get to these optimizations? What are those questions? Steve, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are exactly two questions. The first is, how can I simplify? And the second is, how can I build trust? And for me, these go hand in hand. Simplification means that we end up with tools that are fit for purpose, that enhance our lives, that don't provide us with just unnecessary clutter, that confuse what we're doing. It makes the tools accessible, easy to use, and it allows us to do what we do best, which is being humans, connecting and getting stuff done. And it's not enough just to have that. We have to have trust as well. Kuba, I think that'd be an interesting topic with virtual assistants, because I don't have virtual assistants. I don't trust them. That's my very personal opinion. I think I'm probably different to most there, in that I think you're right. They're massively more accepted by others out there in the world than maybe me, but that's an issue. For me, trust also means it's got to work. So one of our customers, Lurie's in Illinois, in the US, a children's hospital, they have to use our service now for parents to be able to see their children who are desperately ill. That is the only way they can contact them. They're not allowed in the hospital. It's got to work.
Yeah.
Got to work for the simplest purpose possible. And it's got to be reliable, and it's got to be trustworthy. It's got to be secure. And we don't need a feature list of 600 different things that are used by 1% of the workforce. There are actually other tools that are offline that can do that. I would strongly suggest considering simplifying, making sure you've got the core functionality that's needed for human connection within your product. Everything else you need, yes, of course, that's completely legitimate. But make sure you're not catering for the few, and that you're catering for the many. And then, David, just to circle back to your second class of citizens comment, I think that was a fascinating one as well. I think this ties into that. Make sure we're not generating that second class of citizens, that everyone's included. And another customer example, and I'm going to shy away from mentioning their name because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but I'll give you a clue. Second biggest supermarket in the UK. They have they're exploring the idea of if there is a single person in your meeting that's remote, no one is allowed to go into a meeting room. And the reason for that is it gives an unfair advantage to the people in the meeting room. So if there's a single person who is remote, everyone goes to their desks and joins the video call from their desks. So just an example of how this can be achieved. And the only way they can do that is with something that's simple, and it's reliable, and it's secure.
Yeah, absolutely. Kumar, what's your take on that, on the questions customers need to be asking themselves to really get to this point of optimization, if you like?
So very similar to what Steve said, but I would like to add a few things in there, right? So when we look at the optimization, one is the problem here and now, right? Which is how do we, if you think from the company perspective, how do we enable our employee base, partners, customers to at least continue to carry on the tasks that are required to keep the business moving, right? And that is where my previous comment came in, where about the accelerating of their digital transformation, right? So keeping the lights on, so to speak. But now we also know that such trends are probably going to continue, right? Folks, the workforce are distributing. I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, actually the San Francisco is emptying out, and folks are moving into the somewhat less crowded and somewhat less costly area. And the thing is that your talent is going to be there. So how do you enable those remote workers to participate, like Steve, you were saying, effectively and with the same amount of participation and whatnot. And that is where the next set of questions needs to come as to what processes, what systems needs to be upgraded, appended first, and then what kind of what are the important things? For example, for us, we are distributed anyway, right? With the team that are located in San Francisco, folks are in Boston, folks are in Bangalore. So the need to collaborate was always there, but now the need to make it more effective has perhaps been a lot greater than before. And now the questions are, for example, how do we bring the different kind of ideas like whiteboarding together? Right, and how do we capture those ideas as if you were in the same room, even though some of your talents and some of your workers are actually going to be remote, and it may not be because of the reasons we have. For example, you cannot fly them together, right? So this is where we are heading, and I think those are some of the problems that companies and the businesses need to be asking and answering.
Kumar, you mentioned moving out to rural areas there. I'm aware you mentioned 5G at the top of the call. Do you feel there's a huge responsibility here on the service providers to make sure that fundamental currency of getting my packets from this place to this place happens? And do you feel 5G plays a big part in that, particularly in those rural areas?
Actually, that's a great question, and make sure that you stop if I'm talking way too long. This is passion. But nonetheless, what 5G is going to do, in my opinion, is going to alter the way in a very, very profound way, frankly speaking, right? Think of that for a simple thing. So I am to bring a little bit of personal angle to it. I'm extremely directionally challenged, right? You tell me that, Kumar, you go this is straight road, go for 3 miles, and that's your destination. I will manage to lose myself. Okay, so I think of that as a pre-mobile versus post-mobile, right? When the maps were MapQuest was there, and I could have a map, but I would still, right? So I need a mobile device that will tell me, Kumar, you overshot, turn around the car, right? And you overshot again. Where I'm heading with that is that this whole mobility changed the way my life was lived. And similarly, that is true for perhaps most of the folks on Earth. 5G is going to make a similar degree of change, right? Where, at least from, I cannot think of, my God, how I used to live pre-smartphone life. I can't think of that. So on 5G, it is just not about the speed. It is about the multiple facets, and maybe later on we can talk a little bit more about that, right? But things like lower latency connections, things are like where we can actually prioritize certain communication over others in a very, very natural and a programmable way, where we can do the shared bandwidth to mission critical stuff such as healthcare, like the Steve you were talking about. That here is a extremely emotional and extremely important conversation that is going on between the folks in the hospital and their loved and near ones, right?
How do we make sure there's that? And when the coronavirus hit, my team were desperate to open up the Thailand beach office where we were all just in beach huts. So I think right? there's so many applications, right? And why on earth wouldn't you live on the beach in Thailand?
Absolutely. And what 5G is going to allow you to do is to bring in some of the concepts that have been around there, but make it more real. For example, edge computing and cloud computing, right? A version of that is happening right now, where perhaps this video is being recorded on an edge device, which is my PC. Then it will be uploaded in the cloud. And imagine that in the 5G world, actually that will happen in real time, right? The video will be analyzed and processed. Our sound will be analyzed and processed in real time. The assuredness of connectivity will be far more robust. So the 5G, the way it is going to do, it's just not in my opinion, just making it faster. I mean, frankly speaking, the other day, my CEO went out and tested the Verizon 5G, and actually he posted a link which was like close to like a GB plus, and I was like, okay, my fiber optics gives me 100 MB right now. I was a happy kid. Now I feel deprived, right? So now we will have those kind of like a wireless based connections and all that, and they're going to kind of totally change the way we solve problems, communicate, collaborate. I will talk more about that, but hopefully.
Okay, well let's talk about some of the dangers and challenges of optimization. I mean, is there a danger of over optimizing some of these sort of remote working environments? You know, Steve, you mentioned you're coming off the back of days when you're doing sort of 8-9 hours on video conferences. You know, we know video fatigue is a real thing. You know, is this a massive challenge for businesses to get right? I mean, I'd like to go and work on a beach in Thailand. Doesn't sound too bad. I mean, what do you think, Steve?
I'll see you there, David. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And Kumar, if you could start the 5G over there, then I'd be, ever grateful. Yeah, I think related to that is that, you know, I think in coronavirus, there's obviously the really, really horrific dark side of coronavirus, which is deeply, deeply sad, and has touched many of us and our colleagues. And, you know, with all of the situations like this, there have also been, I believe, positives to take away. And one of them for me has been being able to spend more time with my family. And that, on the days where it isn't a 10-hour day, I can suddenly take 30 minutes out and go and play with my 2-year-old son. I mean, that is golden, absolutely golden. So I think it's a fair point, David. And, you know, for me, you asked the question about over optimization. If your viewers haven't read it, I would strongly, and I'm not getting commission off this, I promise you. I'd strongly recommend them to read a book called Black Swan by Nissam Taleb. He's a Lebanese author. I think he's an investment banker turned philosopher. I'll let you work that one out. But he has this whole concept about you can't predict the future. You can't predict the unpredictable. And it's called the Black Swan because years and years ago in the English language, the word white and swan were interchangeable because all swans were white. And then we discovered Australia, and swans over there are white and black. And you just don't know they exist until you get there. And the only thing you can do is maximize your exposure to the possible positives that are going to come in the future and minimize your exposure to the negatives. So very philosophical, but I'd say it's impossible to predict. All we can do is look at the situation. What can we do that maximizes the possible benefits we get from positives, such as people being able to see their families, such as us having new ways of working? And what are the possible negatives that come out of that, like employee wellness, like video fatigue, and how are we going to minimize our exposure to those? And, you know, I think those specific topics are probably going to be quite particular to each and every business on this planet. And I think it's an incredibly individual thing for them just to work out what those are, then work out what the top level goals are, and then work out, as Kumar says, what are then the actionable processes that could be put in place in order to achieve these.
Yeah, Kumar, what's your take on that?
I mean, again, like Steve said, right? This has been a pretty challenging time for the humankind, right? And this is something that, but what we have learned and what we've discovered, maybe somewhat unintentionally, but what we have discovered is some of the basic things, right? For example, my neighborhood. I never knew that my neighborhood was to be brutally honest, this beautiful. Okay, why? Because I spend most of my time either traveling or at office, right? And the simple joy of just stepping out of your house and taking a walk with your kids and just go around the neighborhood because they're not off to yet another activity such as whatever it might be, ice skating or something, right? In the middle of the summer, just bundling them up and sending them to ice skating, Well, we spend the summer just taking the walk in our neighborhood, and neighborhoods are beautiful, and there are a couple of, so it's a discovering our life back, and learning that there has been a bit of a, how should I say, that literally like taking a step back and taking things a little bit slower if possible, right? On the other hand, there have been things like video meetings, hours after hour, where you are forced to sit on a particular chair for multiple hours at a same time, and that may have its own impact on your health and whatnot. And making sure that we take care of that. So it has been both the good and the bad. Along with the anxiety, some very simple joys have come back in our life, which I think we might not have discovered to the degree that we wanted to or we should have. So going forward, the challenge of over-optimizing, David, that's true, right? If we really try to optimize and say, okay, how can my life be really productive all the time? May backfire, and it might be more useful for us to say, okay, how do we make the best of time that we have right now? Use the technologies, make sure that we have time scheduled to take the break, and it's just a meeting, right? You just like this activity that is important for us to do. Same thing is for us to take a step away and really get something back to revitalize yourself. So. Absolutely. This has been an unprecedented time, but I've also say the good thing is that this has allowed us to perhaps get back in touch with things that we were not paying a whole lot of attention to.
Yeah,
Kumar,
I couldn't agree more.
I just to say, Kumar, you just reminded me of something which may or may not be of benefit to some of the viewers, which is that when I was working in our UK sales team, it was quite a cyclical job where you'd spend 2 weeks literally not seeing your family because you were just out on the road doing stuff. And exactly as you described, you just wouldn't know what your house looked like, let alone your neighborhood. And then there'd just be a week of calm. And it's very easy to fill that week of calm with stuff. And I always used to feel like I had to be present in order to not let down my colleagues, to be there for our customers. And my boss at the time, Mike McCarthy, who actually is now our US country manager, he let me in on a tip. He said, Steve, if you were in a meeting, would you be upset if you weren't there for someone? And I said, no, well, I'd be in a meeting, Mike. And he said, okay, well, what I want you to do is book some meetings in each week that are just called run, meditation, go outside, and just go and do that. And people will think you're in a meeting because it's in your calendar. So I have to say that works well for me, and I still do it to this day. Maybe I shouldn't admit to that. I don't
know. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So I have to say that this is perhaps the most unexpected upside, if I can put that way, of this break, a forced break that we were all put into. And now I think that even just the way I was saying earlier, that a lot of these changes which have been brought with pandemic in the business world is continue to stay, perhaps in the personal life as well. Some of these positive changes that has come, I will work on to hold on to that and make sure that, we don't go back to 100% the way we were. So, yes, David.
Okay, so look, let's take a look forward now. 2021 is upon us. What do we feel that's going to look like? It's time to get the crystal ball out and make a prediction. What is that going to look like from a hybrid working and optimization point of view? Steve, do you want to kick us off on that?
Well, I think that's definitely worthwhile. A Donald Rumsfeld quote about known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. Right? For me, a big event in 2021 that I think is a known is we will be returning to offices in some capacity. The known unknowns are, what does that mean for our meeting rooms? Given that we've all embraced remote working, we're all over video. Companies like the UK retail a company I mentioned, they've got a very firm view on what that looks like. Others may not. And there's going to be a whole load of unknowns beyond that. So the sorts of things I'm already coming across there by talking to many companies around the world are Do we need more meeting rooms or fewer meeting rooms? Do they need to be bigger or smaller? Do they need to be sanitized easily? What's the thing there? And I mean, looking at the sort of more meeting rooms or fewer, there are some organizations I've talked to where they've said, look, at least one of the people on this on any meeting are going to be remote. So we need to have more video equipped meeting rooms. So, suddenly we're taking our meeting room estate and we are expanding it into where we previously had desk space, because we simply don't need as many desks as we used to have. So suddenly their offices are becoming literally buildings full of meeting rooms. In other cases, there's, for instance, one Texan-based software company we work with. They've gone the opposite way, and they've said, no, meeting rooms are not COVID secure. We're not doing them anymore. If there's a meeting, people join it from their desktop, and we've embraced the desktop now. We're all comfortable with making telephone calls, video calls from the desktop, so we're going to go and do that. And of course, there's many in between. And then there's the sort of large room versus small room. On one hand, if you're expecting to have, few colleagues from any team in the office at any one point, it makes sense to take a 12-person meeting room. And, with COVID regulations, probably you can make that into 2 3-person meeting rooms. So you've now doubled your number of meeting rooms, and it's fit for the sort of sizes and shapes of teams you're going to have in the office. Another business I've talked to are going the opposite way, and they're actually deleting everything in their office space, and they're turning it into sort of almost the away day place, where the only reason you come into work is because your entire team is there, and the workplace is going to be a COVID secure place for people to get together, to collaborate on things in people, to build up their relationships. And there's going to be one day a month scheduled in order to do that. So I think it's in some ways coming back to the black swan idea of not being able to predict the future and maximizing surface area to those positives. I really feel 2021, the known is we're returning to the offices. What does that mean for your business? What is important to you? And how can you adapt your space at the office to maximize the impact of the positives there and minimize the impact of what will be negatives? There's going to be positives and negatives here.
Excellent. Okay, so Kumar, what does 2021? What's that going to bring from your perspective?
Absolutely. So 2021 couldn't wait to get and welcome that year, right? So I mean, absolutely, some things that we know. I think that vaccine is here. Hopefully, that means that a little bit more control of the current situation, but it is going to be there for a while, at least for most of the 2021. However, it will make the physical collaboration between the human beings a little bit more safer than what it is right now. And just to extend what Steve, you were talking about, right? I mean, these are precisely the questions. For example, my wife's company, which is actually in the space of innovation, and she works for a lab working on the cutting edge technologies and whatnot. And actually, they have shut down their office because they believe that their work effectiveness have not gone down. Of course, their team is stable and there's some pretty brilliant people, but that was a kind of a very interesting news to me. But that's what they did, right? Similarly, one of my neighbor who is in a mid-sized company, a finance controller, he's actually still wants to keep the team local because when he says that, hey, if my payroll is running, I want a control. Right, so just the way you were Steve is saying that some of this collaboration will become more distributed. In another case, the collaboration will remain local. Another friend of mine who has actually is a startup. He's going full WeWork way, right? So he has picked up a place near to his VC office and says, "Okay, Mr. VC, whenever you want, we'll be here. But essentially, I don't want to spend any money on renting a very, very costly San Francisco office where we may not be there anyway." So again, totally the workforces are going in the different directions. But what we can say is that and there are certain trends. So if we look back, like I said, that we like to spend time thinking about the enabling technologies, right? So we like to think about how the different kind of collaboration may change. So think about the healthcare, right? As simple thing as visit by a patient to or interaction between patient and a doctor. Earlier, visiting a doctor was not that big a deal. Now it is a big deal. So we have started doing a remote a patient visit, so to speak. Okay, is that going to go back the old way? Probably not, because we have discovered that for everything you really don't need to go to the doctor's office. Okay, then how do we continue to make those visits more effective, right? So that's the question that will come. Similarly for commerce, right? For as a simple thing as a grocery, which was pretty much a routine exercise for us to hop into a car, go to a grocery shop, get your stuff. Now we've figured out, not really. I mean, grocery is a really mundane task that I can probably offload to a third party who can do it for us. And maybe that is where the folks like technology like virtual assistants and all that comes into place, where they go and actually do the coordinate the grocery shop with folks like DoorDash and others, right? So that kind of how is that interaction going to play? So that is the one thing, like what we call from the perspective of hybrid, which is virtual and the physical world, right? And so that's the one. The second piece is, if we can continue, the second lens that we look at this problem from is the experience itself, the immersive experience, right? So what I like to say is, I mean, today's video is going to be very different from tomorrow's video. Right now we are interacting. Pretty much the name of the game is to capture this video feed and send it to the other party with as faithfully as possible. And that's pretty much it. If you're in the healthcare, it is the same thing that, okay, if the patient is remote, capture that video and show it to the doctors or the nurses as faithfully and as securely, right? Like you were pointing out, and that's the name of the game. But tomorrow, actually things will change, right? That's where what we are thinking, that the tomorrow's videos will have maybe it will have a camera that not only just captures the normal video but also a thermal image of a patient, and it feeds the video in real time, and that then it comes to, and before it reaches to the doctor or the nurse at the other end, it actually goes through a layer of video analytics for healthcare, where it can actually analyze the video and point out some of the possible, tag that video in real time to point out to the doctors and nurses to pay a little bit more attention to something, right? And similarly, it could also have the other edge devices, for example, which takes your blood pressure or glucose monitor and all that, and all gets kind of fed into the real time. And that brings us to the third thing, Steve, that you were asking about previously, about the role of, say, 5G and the new architecture. So when all these things happens, right, we need to bring we need a new architecture and the new set of technology to bring in and tie them together. And in large part, that is being enabled by 5G. So for example, 5G not only, so 5G provides a very fast pipe, and then it can also provide a very reliable pipe, right, across the internet, when we can actually assure the bandwidth and so forth. And at the same time, there are development happening in the low latency codec, which can actually take the video, all this different kind of video stream, do it in really fast speed and send it to the destination through the multiple maybe coding and recoding, because all this analytics requires you to do that. And that is where the edge and the 5G network kind of come together in this new form of architecture to enable such collaboration, right? It is still a collaboration between the patient and the doctor, and make it happen, right? Where maybe you can cut down the visit to the doctors by 50%, and think about all these vast spaces where sometimes the trip to a doctor is a couple of hour drive scenario, right? So we can cut down on those. I mean, this particular set of collaboration can be extended to so many other use cases, such as in education, where you can actually, instead of just sending a simple video feed, you can have all this different, what we call augmented reality, where you can put in some additional information on top of the video feed, where the instructor or the students, or maybe the notebook, the ideas, something gets superimposed to communicate the ideas, right? Similarly, getting back to our own office, the UCAS focus that we're, at least I spend a lot of time on, just making the collaboration seems more easy, where ability to even annotate doesn't require me to have yet another device, but maybe it can be combined with a computer and all those things. So this is where we think that the 2021 and is going, with the advance in the technology and the fact that folks are now far more open to remote collaboration and the different form of collaborations, is going to, I think, is already impacting the new applications that are coming, and I think the trend is just going to accelerate.
Kumar, we should work together. I'd come up with a high-level thing, and you fill in a load of detail that makes me sound intelligent. One thing I would say there is that, I think everything you said about, for instance, the telemedicine there is really exciting and true. And for me, architecturally, the way I would see that being delivered is still there being a simple set of tools that people can use to solve complex problems. They've got to be simple tools so that we can connect like human beings. We've been doing that for millions of years in tribes. That ain't going away. We aren't changing as human beings. If anything, we're getting more back to where we were. We were spending 8 hours a day socializing and 4 hours a day working. I also shouldn't say that. For me, everything you've talked about, Kumar, is that's so exciting, and for me that's really the specific bolt-ons into that incredibly simple tool. So, for instance, we work with we do a lot of work with the NHS in the UK, and they're using Starleaf for their day-to-day communications. It's simple enough to be used by literally anyone in the organisation, and at the same time, they hold their multidisciplinary team meetings on it for the most complex cancer patients, where you have experts dialing in from all around the world, and they're doing everything you say, Kumar. It's just being fed as an input into the incredibly simple tool, and I think there's a power there. The intersection of sort of the complexity and the simplicity, so that you get a core product that works brilliantly for everyone, and then you layer on top of that the complexity that allows you to solve incredibly difficult problems with everything you've just shared, Kumar.
Absolutely, Steve. The good thing is that the world is changing and changing for the better, and we are. Now we are getting into a state of technology, as well as the change in the mindset, the acceptance of the newer solutions, which are going to essentially enable us to get into the next phase of evolution, so to speak, which will, again, just like me, sometimes when I wonder how I used to drive pre-smartphone, I'm pretty sure that 10 years from now, I do wonder, what was I doing prior to 2020, So future is exciting, really looking forward to 2021.
Yeah, that absolutely is. Well, look, Steve and Kumar, we unfortunately we've run out of time. I get the feeling we could talk about this probably all day, but alas, we must leave our audience now. Look, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you both the best of luck.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. My pleasure. Yep.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching UC Summit with me, David Dungay. I'll see you next time.